So, sir, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log, which is a podcast for the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center community on topics of interest. And the topic of interest today is speaking with the Deputy Program Executive Officer for the RSO and learning more about the RSO. So, sir, if you could introduce yourself to the audience and give us a little of your career background.
Sure. My name is Rodney Stevens. I'm the Deputy PEO for the Rapid Sustainment Office. I've been in the Air Force in some form of affiliation for nearly the past 30 years. I enlisted in the Air Force back in 1993 as a financial management troop. Was then able to be commissioned in 99, where I spent the next 20 plus years as an acquisition and maintenance officer, primarily focusing on acquisitions and logistics for the United States Air Force. Retired as a colonel in 2019 and had the great opportunity to come back to civil service to continue to be a part of the Air Force family. In 2019, I joined the Fighters and Bombers Directorate, where I was the Director of Staff there. And then recently have joined the Rapid Sustainment Office in the past summer of 2021 and have been here ever since.
Okay. So tell us, what is the Rapid Sustainment Office and why was it created?
Okay. Yeah, I'd be glad to. So the RSO is an acquisition organization within the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, whose primary mission and responsibility is to be sustainment-centric, focus on the sustainment enterprise, to identify new emerging and mature technologies that can improve the way operations are done, both for the maintenance and logistics communities. Simply speaking, we're kind of like the acquisitions arm of all the maintainers and logisticians that are in the Air Force today. The HAF-A4 organization within the Pentagon has an innovative cell called Tesseract, and that Tesseract organization focuses on a lot of theory of constraints and processes for the maintenance and logistics community, and we serve as the material solution acquisitions arm for that community to identify those technologies that will allow us to improve mission readiness and to achieve lower cost savings of how we sustain our weapons systems throughout the Air Force.
Okay, and so how does that work? I mean, how does the RSO operate then?
Yeah, great question. In the sense that, so we have put in place a technology management pipeline that focuses on a framework of identifying, applying, and scaling technologies. Again, going back to looking for those new emerging and mature technologies that may be available in the commercial space, other services, and or academia, and then taking this technology management pipeline and organizing a lifecycle management center organization around that pipeline. So again, the IAS approach, identify, apply, and scale. And that allows us to identify the best of breed technologies to be responsive to the customer needs, to continue product delivery, and to avoid the proverbial valley of death. And we do that by focusing on 6 technical focus areas. So we have 6 technology focus areas that we focus on. And that's primarily in the area of artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, automation and robotics, augmented and virtual reality, rapid and austere maintenance environments, and the digital environments. And so that will, we take those technology focus areas. We then apply those technology focus areas utilizing the IAS and organize around that identify, apply, scale construct, again, to then deliver technology at scale for the sustainment enterprise for the maintainer on the flight line, the maintenance technician in the depot, or somebody within the back shop at an Air Force base who is getting after the challenges of sustaining our aging aircraft fleet.
So I've heard this term, the Wild West, is a reference for when it comes to USAF innovation ecosystem. So could you tell us what that means, and how does the RSO work with like small businesses, industry, academia, that kind of thing? How do you interface with them?
Great question, Daryl, in the sense that. So yes, Wild West is I've heard that too from the innovation ecosystem, also known as. There are a lot of players going after innovation, and that's a good thing. We want the airmen of our Air Force to be innovators and to identify opportunities for innovation, and we want our small businesses, academia, and other services to identify those innovative ways that we can get after the problems that we're facing on a day-to-day basis. The challenge becomes, how do you harness all of that innovation? And so that in the sense that we have a bunch of velocity, a bunch of velocity going to a particular target, but how do we then vector that velocity to the end state that we want to be a part of? So a couple of ways that the RSO, play in that space. So number one, again, if we look at our identify and apply scale construct, we organize around the framework of the identify phase. And so we stay abreast of the ecosystem. We work very closely with Air Force Material Command's CDX organization. They have an innovation cell up underneath General Bunch's, the AFMC We Need organization. And so we're a part of that. And then, a lot of it is brute force collaboration, just making sure that we are staying connected to all the necessary forums that are in place. We leverage our SAFAQ leadership. So Ms. Timofeychuk, who is responsible for the S&T portion of sustainment. And so one of the big things that I think the Department of Defense is recognized is that how we harness and understand where the sustainment and technology gaps are, who is going to be the point person for that. SAFAQD is that for the Air Force. They are the services touch point in that area. The DoD recently, this past May, put out a DoD instruction about science and technology for material readiness, 5000.92. And so we leverage SAFAQD in that space, helping us stay connected to the labs, helping us stay connected to the other PEOs across Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, and then utilizing kind of what the chief said at AFA is being very transparent with horsepower, right? And so just having those necessary touch points, collaborating as needed, and then going through with horsepower to ensure we're all aligned as we're trying to achieve, again, the end state in that objective. And that's trying to provide technology for the maintainers so that we can get after the mission readiness challenges that we're faced with.
Okay. So what are some of the successes that you've seen so far in the organization?
Yeah, we've had some great successes. So just a couple of them I'll hit upon, primarily one of them being in the advanced manufacturing spaces. So this is one of our program offices that we have within the RSO. And that organization is responsible for scaling the additive manufacturing technologies. And so what we have been able to achieve there is starting to qualify printers, the printers that can print in three-dimensional spaces. First in the polymer space. And so one of the successes that we've been able to do is to, on the C5, so aligning with our mobility program executive office and the C5 system program office specifically, been able to identify ways to print parts for some of the flight crew doors. There's an actual component. It's known as a header assembly for the flight station. In that area, we're able to save the Air Force $24,000 per part and about 385 days of lead time to actually, if you had to produce a part through traditional means. That's just one example in the advanced manufacturing space. Another technology in that space is cold spray repair technologies. And this was been done working with our bombers PEO, specifically the B1 System Program Office, where we've been able to apply an advanced manufacturing technology where you actually are able to spray metal onto a component to save that component as opposed to having to actually replace the entire component. And in doing those type of cold spray technologies on the B1, we've saved on average about $12,000 per repair, which doesn't seem like a lot, but the big gain is the lead time. It takes over nearly 900 days to actually procure this particular part or to get the part manufactured. And by applying this cold spray repair technologies, we're saving over 2 years worth of lead time for that particular part, which it allows the maintainers then to not have to cannibalize a part of it off of a different platform. We can get that aircraft into the flight a lot quicker. Another success I'd like just to highlight is in our product management team. The additional technology is that solar powered integrated structure. And we have been able to utilize this technology that we identified through a small business innovative research contract through one of our pitch days, where we took this technology and applied it both in UCOM and PACAF, and it's been utilized in 6 different operational exercises. And what this technology brings to the fight is it helps us in the austere combat environments. And so we take our technology focus area of rapid and austere maintenance environments, apply this technology there, and this allows us to actually, us being the Air Force, to reduce our demand for fuel. so we can operate communication devices within those austere environments, not having to worry about having generators or enough fuel to power those generators. We can supplement the need by this structure. And so a lot of great successes there. We're very close to actually getting this technology stock listed through GSA or DLA, so that any of the operational units who may operate in those austere environments can use it. So those are between the advanced manufacturing and this particular one and our product management team, some great successes we've seen.
Yeah, those are some really interesting projects. So what are some of the obstacles now going forward that you face when you're trying to rapidly develop things and push them out to the field?
Yeah, another very good question. So some of the challenges that we're experiencing, number one, there's obviously a lot of priorities within our Air Force. So our secretary has identified what the operational imperatives are. And so one of the biggest barriers that we have is how do we operate with a demand signal for our overall Air Force where investments are made towards those operational imperatives. So it's just number one is funds, right? And making sure that we have the necessary funds to be able to invest in those technologies. The second area is culture. And so that it's almost an oxymoron when you say that you want to modernize sustainment, because sustainment within the life cycle is at the latter half of our life cycle management of a particular weapon system. And so when we have to and or trying to go after modernizing sustainment operations or sustainment processes, it's kind of counterintuitive. So why would you do investment in a sustainment phase? And so getting over some of those cultural barriers and identifying ways and the means to our senior leadership that the investment in the sustainment enterprise is necessary to reap the benefits for mission readiness and or cost savings. And then some of the other areas are just the technologies in itself. I mean, if we were to focus on advanced manufacturing, that is I wouldn't say uncharted territory, but we're still very early on in the stages of that technology of machine processing and how you actually qualify the printers that are producing the parts, the actual material itself, the powders and or other materials that you're using to print the parts, in doing the necessary analysis and studies to show that they actually are as structurally sound, if not more sound, than the way that the traditional parts are either forged and or milled out of blocks of titanium. And so there's still a lot of areas that need to be done in that space. We're working specifically General Electric with some of our Pacer Edge areas where we're leveraging the technologies that they're pursuing in aircraft engines. Then we're also working with the directorate up in the Air Force Research Laboratory in that area as well. Again, as we both work with the labs and our industry partners to get after achieving some of those barriers that are in place that are technology barriers writ large.
Mm-hmm. So what's the future look like for the RSO? I mean, what's your vision for the organization in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes. So, General Morris, our PEO, says that we need to wobble sprint, meaning that run as fast as you can. You may wobble along the way until you hit your stride. And so we're going to continue to do that in the very near term, getting after the necessary technology that is needed to improve maintenance and sustainment operations. Over the next 3 years, it's our goal to have the RSO be the branded organization that when people think of the sustainment challenges that the field or the depots are experiencing, they think of the RSO. And they think of the RSO because we're able to deliver a capability and a rapid rate to achieve what the objectives are. So what are those respective pain points? I see in the near term, the continued collaboration with the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center PEOs within LCMC to see and understand where their pain points are. I think there's some work that still needs to be done with other stakeholders and making sure we're all aligned. Again, great organization within the logistics community, within the HAF at the headquarters level, known as Tesseract, going after some of those theory of constraints and process issues. We really want to team with them to ensure that when we start talking material solutions, that there is a unified teaming approach there to get after the challenges that the field and the depots are experiencing. So 3 to 5 years, near term is to run as fast as we can, to continue to build those partnerships across the community, to apply a little vector to the velocity that exists within the innovation space, to align with the laboratories where necessary and industry as needed. And then I think the midterm, the 5-year point would be that it's second nature that the RSO is the organization for the sustainment enterprise. Like any of the other PEOs that exist today, when you think the F-15, you think the Fighters and Advanced Aircraft Program Office. When you think C-17, you think mobility. And so our goal is when you think sustainment enterprise-wide challenges, you think RSO.
So, sir, that pretty much brings us to the end of our time. But before we close, I just want to see, is there anything that I forgot to ask you about or anything that you'd like to add or reiterate?
Okay. All right. So in closing, I just want to take this opportunity to say thanks very much for the opportunity to speak a little bit today about the Rapid Sustainment Office. Again, we are an organization that was created by our former SAE, Dr. Roper, to identify technologies for the sustainment enterprise so that we can deliver at a rate of relevance for those maintainers, both on the flight line, in the back shops within the Air Force bases and within the ALCs. We're doing that through a framework that allows us to get after the technologies at a rate of speed. There is a very large and vast innovation ecosystem that we are working very closely with, again, to identify vectors for that velocity. The RSO is committed to the Air Force mission, and that our mission is to improve mission readiness and to identify ways to reduce costs for weapon system sustainment. And so I thank you for this opportunity. We look forward to continued engagements. And if should anyone ever have any questions with respect to the RSO and what we do, please feel free to reach out. We're glad to have a conversation. Thank you.
All right. Sir, thanks very much for joining us on Leadership Log and explaining about the RSO and your incredible mission.
Great. Thanks very much for your time. Have a good day.